one of the more important and popular avenues of research in behavioral ecology is observing sustained individual differences or behavior styles. Previously, in ecology and zoology, the differences in individual properties were considered as random deviations from the average, and key population parameters were measured as an average or the average, accompanied by the rate of deviation. But then the effective average was discovered to provide not as much information as the range of deviations around it. So the values do not aggregate around one average, but rather they cluster into different groups that represent different intra-species strategies. And one of the telling examples here would be various different reproductive strategies by males of mammals and birds. The other example is maternal behavior. It was first discovered in humans, then it was proven to be observed in horses, in primates, in elephants, and in some predators. We believe that we can research benefits for this as well and take them as reference. So that's my first presentation on this avenue of research. Typically, eared seals or northern fur seals present the following behaviors. There are a couple of days of post-birth period where females spend time with their pups, then they go foraging, return to the rookery, spend a bit more time with the pups, and then the cycle repeats. This short window after birth is the critical phase where we can observe critical survival events. Attachment is formed, and this enables the mother to find her pup among hundreds of other pups. And then this period is also critical for future reproductive success of the female and survival of the pup. That's been the focus of our study that was carried out on the Bering Island on its northern rookery. There is a reproductive area there where we have this ramp, also presented by Alexander earlier. That's observation ramp that enables you to do close-up observation. We observed 3 harems that were 10 to 15 meters away from our cameras. We were able to sample 16 females out of these 3 groups. Here is the method. That's how we did our observations. We did photo identification to recognize the females reliably, and we were able to recognize each individual. We used a standard protocol to process video materials. And then we measured 6 maternity parameters that would be to evaluate behavior. We borrowed those from other academic publications on behavior styles. First is synchronous activities by mother and pup. That would be both active and inactive if together. Then smelling, feeding initiative, attention to the pup. So what's the percentage of time that the female is paying attention to her pup? Then initiative by the female is another important parameter. In northern fur seals, we have that a lot, where the female would touch the pup with her nose or somehow agitate it Otherwise, where this usually leads to other joint activities. And the other parameter is protection of the offspring. This would be any aggression displayed by the female if the pup is approached by other seals, by seagulls, or other animals. And some individuals were surprisingly indifferent in these cases. We took all those data and used a procedure for processing applied to other females in other species. Each of these 16 individuals got a score from 1 to 16 then. If during our first round of observations, we saw more aggressive protection by this individual, it gets the score of 1, that would be her ranking. And if out of the sample, the female did that the least, it would rank 16th. We compare it statistically and looked at the similarities on the individual level. And then over 8 days, this would reflect the stability of that behavior pattern over the 8 days of this post-birth period. Out of the 6 parameters, we saw that 3 parameters are reliably stable. So that the ranking for one female would be stable over the entire period of observations. We have 3 properties like that: attention, initiative, and aggressive protection. If there was one female that were more aggressive during the first day, then there was a high probability that it would continue doing so on the other days more frequently than the rest of the sample. We identified the stable properties and analyzed them. Let's start with attention. Visual attention to the pup. We charted the data for each female. We rank ordered them. And what we see is that there are 3 marked groups. They were indifferent females to the left who barely paid any attention to their offspring. Then there was a highly attentive group to the right. Unless they were sleeping, they were observing their pup. And then we have a group in between. And the data within this group is also coherent as a cohort. Then another feature that we wanted to examine was the interrelation of these stable properties. We looked at the rank order by attention and overlapped it with initiative. That would be cleaning the pup, agitating the pup to incentivize joint attention or activity. And we saw a marked positive correlation between these 2 individual properties. Especially so in the outlier groups, that would be the indifferent females and the highly attentive females. In the middle, we don't get that much of a correlation. These would be individuals that either showed initiative or rarely engaged with their pup. Okay, then we isolated that property where females showed a lot of initiative. We called this development-focused behavior pattern. So that's one style. And we were able to define it separately. However, for another property, aggressive protection, we weren't able to show any correlation. So this resulted in the following list of styles: attentive, indifferent, developing, and protecting. The obvious question is, what's the background for such a style? We hypothesized that this would be age. So we used a conventional methodology to group all females into groups. Two groups, young and old, and then the pups were also classified by expert opinion into small, average, and large. It's a judgment call, but we got several opinions and they were aligned. This is enough accuracy for this purpose. In our sample, we didn't see any impact of age of the female on the behavior style that they take. The same applied to the size of the pup. And that's it. Thank you. May I? Ms. Krutchenkova? Yes, sure, with pleasure. Nice to see you. Was there any age difference between these female groups? Did you look at this dimension? Well, the sample is pretty small. A rough estimate based on visual age identification, we separated them into young and adult. But then we didn't see any correlation. Both groups, younger females and older females, presented all behavior styles. Maybe there is a trend that can be identified in a larger sample, but there was no express correlation there. I think it's more about individual properties.